haven't talked about the cover art for this series yet, have I? Like the pictures I use in these reviews, the covers are royalty-free stock photos. That's why the covers are only vaguely related to the books. They were picked because they were free, not because they were relevant.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
We start with the Hardys going up against Outback Mac, an exotic reptile smuggler. He tries to kill them with a king cobra, but Frank knows that snakes are charmed by music. That's not true, but let's pretend it is, because that's the only way it makes sense for Frank to distract a cobra with a CD player. As they leave the building, Joe is bitten by an iguana. He's worried iguanas are poisonous, and Frank scolds him for not researching reptiles before they started their mission. This coming from the guy who thinks snake charming is real. Either way, I'm surprised that Frank talked about research, because I don't think the Hardys have ever done prep work for their missions before. They go home where Mom and Dad are dancing to gross old people music. ATAC airdrops their next mission into the vegetable garden. The mission is to stop an international CD pirating operation, which is headquartered at their high school. Because, yeah, if you're money laundering $1 million criminal enterprise, a high school is a good cover. Brian Conrad is there. Brian Conrad is always there. He's bragging about all the CDs he's illegally downloaded. The Hardys are shocked at how common it is for kids to break copyright laws. Like, Chet made Joe a copy of his CD. That's not legal. And Belinda just sent Frank a love song as an email attachment. That's not legal either. Clearly, Bayport High School is a hive of scum and villainy. No wonder international criminals operate out of here. To drive home the point that breaking copyright law is wrong, Frank gets a lecture from Mr. Connor, the computer teacher. He spends a few pages explaining all the ways that kids might unknowingly break copyright law. He says these laws also apply to books, too. Ah, that's why this book is obsessing over copyrights. They're trying to protect themselves. Actually, I kind of giggled when Mr. Connor said authors have copyrights for their books, because this is a ghost-written series that gives more credit to the royalty-free cover photographer than the author. Mr. Connor is shocked to discover that someone stole 20 cases of blank CDs. Oh no! I'm not sure that's enough CDs to run an international crime ring, but it's still suspicious. Mr. Connor will later say the missing CDs were a shipping error. Meanwhile, Joe looks into their only suspect, a kid named Julian Sanders. Julian is major into music, and he gets angry when Joe pressures him. He yells at Joe and throws a dodgeball at his head, instantly knocking Joe unconscious. Our hero. After that, Julian apologizes and becomes more friendly. This gives Joe a chance to check out Julian's notebook. Julian just filled out an order for 1 C.D. Burns. So the culprit is someone who enjoys bad puns. I see. The Hardys go to Mega Mart, where a guy is buying blank CDs. Joe asks him what he plans to do with them. The guy drops them on Joe's foot and runs away, prompting a 10-page chase sequence through the entire mall. They eventually corner the guy, and he gives them C.D. Burns' email. They send Burns an email, pretending they want to join his organization. He asks them to make 150 CDs as a test. But they get knocked out during the drop-off, and C.D. Burns sends them a nasty note, telling them to drop the case. There is a subplot about Belinda Conrad in this book. Joe gives Frank a lot of grief about her because she's the perfect catch and she likes Frank. Frank admits he likes her back a lot, but he's too nervous to ask her out on a date. Poor Frank. So when Belinda asks Frank out to a concert, he immediately says yes. Okay, no, he doesn't. The book and I are just teasing you. Belinda goes to the concert alone because Frank Hardy is an awful person, and she buys him a CD there, proving she's far too good for him. The CD she got is a bootleg, so the Hardys investigate the next concert. They meet the band and introduce themselves as undercover agents. So much for keeping the mission top secret. The band suspects the club owner is guilty, but then there's a big fire and the club owner dies. In the rubble is a metal box for C.D. Burns stuffed with cash. The Hardys email Burns and arrange for a drop-off at the docks. It turns out Burns is really Mr. Connor. Frank proves his identity with an audio recording, which was taken from the previous time the Hardys were attacked. That was 40 pages ago. Frank kept the conclusive evidence a secret. Why? Mr. Connor tries to kill the Hardys with a knife, but they get saved by the band from earlier. Joe rejoices that Mr. Connor has been arrested because he doesn't have to do homework for Mr. Connor's class anymore. The end. Post-book follow-up. This is an enjoyable book, if you can look past the fact that it's basically an educational book about music copyright. But there are some problems with the book I want to discuss. The first is that every kid in this high school uses CDs all the time. Nobody has a digital music player? When this book was published in 2005, there were already 8 different kinds of iPods. Other than that, the technology is on point, which brings me to the emails. They are major page wasters. Not only do they come in a different, larger font, but each email contains 4 lines of asterisks. Look, author, I'm okay with a book that's 4 pages shorter than normal, if that means 3-paragraph emails don't take up more than a page. The Belinda Conrad material in this book is interesting, and it makes me sad because I saw this happen with Deirdre Shannon and Nancy Drew Girl Detective. Once in a while, there's a book where Deirdre's subplot moves forward, and she shows actual character development. Like here, where Frank finally admits he likes Belinda, and she asks him out. That's good! But the next book will be written by a completely different person who didn't read this one, and Belinda will revert back to being a one-dimensional character whose only reason for existence is so we can have jokes that Frank is awkward around girls. Overall, I enjoyed the book, the action scenes were good, and the premise worked fine, even if it's weird for a high school teacher to be an international criminal. It's not perfect, though, with the patronizing lectures about copyright law, and the Hardy Boys breaking their cover to complete strangers, again. But none of the flaws bothered me all that much, so I'm only taking off 1 point. I give Hardy Boys Undercover Brothers number 6, Burned, a 9 out of 10.